everyone. My name is Stephanie Adams, and I will be the host for this TLC session, Adaptive Learning Courseware and Gateway English Composition Courses Online, presented by Aimee Garten and co-presenter Rebecca Campbell. We are excited that you have joined us today to hear Aimee and Rebecca's presentation. The chat window will be open at the end of the session, so please feel free to ask questions at that time. Please welcome Aimee Garten.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you. Good morning for those in the Pacific. Good early morning. It's very nice to see some folks out there. We're very thrilled to present today to you. Again, my name is Aimee Garten, and I am principal investigator on this project. And with me is Becky Campbell, co-investigator. We're going to talk just for a bit about our study and some of the findings, and then we'll open it up for some discussion at the end. So this has been about a 3-year project for me. Becky joined in about 2 years ago. And just for background, we were very concerned with retention, as a lot of people are, and the rumors and the suggestions and the ideas that, well, part of the problem is, students can't write. We hear that a lot, especially as composition instructors. We hear that quite a bit. So we wanted to investigate that piece of retention. Is the fact that students aren't writing well part of the issue? So we did quite a bit of study, and we saw that, it's entirely possible that there's some connection. And so we came up with some research questions. And I won't read these out to you, but we were just looking to see, is there something, a technology, something we can do to help students with their writing that could then potentially impact the student experience over the long haul? And the thing that kind of kept coming back and kept ringing bells was the idea of adaptive technology. So some of you may be familiar with adaptive technology, some may not. Basically how it works is that whatever action and behavior a student takes in the courseware reacts and gives them a custom journey. So if they need extra practice on this concept, they'll get extra practice, extra feedback until they reach a basic competency level, and then they can move forward. So this is used quite a bit in sort of the STEM fields, things like math, things like the sciences, where there's sort of a binary experience, a right and a wrong experience. This has not been really used in something as sort of subjective and nuanced and human mind requiring thing like writing. So it was a little bit ambitious for us to think about applying this technology that's being used quite well in the STEM fields and now try to apply it to student writing. But we fell up to the challenge. So we looked around to see what was available. And I've got to tell you, it was a little bit concerning because there were a few like plug and play ready to go things for, say, APA, right? So there were some things actually put out by the APA, put out by some other vendors that were extremely advanced level. So these were products made for training purposes for folks who are publishing in APA, graduate doctoral students who want to submit for publication. Very, very advanced, very, very expensive. So, the APA product, for example, was $80 a student. I mean, that's more than all of our course material fees put together. Other things were, add-ons to textbooks, and we didn't use the textbooks, so we couldn't use those. And they weren't necessarily what we wanted either. They are either, tailored way down to K-12, or they were way high up for graduate students. So we investigated just dozens and dozens of vendors. Many of them had nothing that would work for us at all. They were strictly STEM products, math products, science products, or they were things that were these sort of cookie cutter plug and play pieces that had no way for us to customize what we needed for A, our unique student population, B, the diversity of our students, and C, an accelerated 5-week format, right? So a lot of these are semester-long products, and jamming them in with other coursework in 5 weeks just was going to be extremely difficult. The other pieces that concerned us was most of them had zero mobile interface. So students who were commuting on the train and doing coursework on their iPads would be excluded. And that was something that we didn't want to investigate. We wanted students to be able to go on wherever they were. The mobile piece is important to our students. A lot of the products provided zero analytics. So we could give the students an activity to do, but we would never know how they did, how much time they were spending, where they got stuck. A lot of them were stagnant, okay? So we could never really update. We could never change. We could never adapt the program to what we're learning from our students. As I mentioned before, so many were at the wrong level, either K-12 or graduate school, and the 18-week semester situation. So we decided on one vendor, and I'll let Becky kind of take it away and talk about the one vendor we found that was willing to partner with us and could do the things we were hoping they would do. Becky?
Thanks, Aimee. So we came across Smart Sparrow, which is an adaptive learning technology founded by Dr. Jorba Naim. They have offices actually up in San Francisco, but also down in Australia. And we actually got to work with both of those offices as we developed the modules that we wanted our students to use. Aimee, I'm gonna ask, never mind, we're good, we're good.
You got it, okay. Sharing our screen.
New technology. So this is the landing page for our modules. We integrated them into the classroom. The link would open through a new window. And we wanted students to get the feel that they were going into the library and studying. So we have this beautiful background we came across. We really wanted that study mindset. So to help them settle into that frame of mind and get them ready to study. So in designing these modules, Smart Sparrow has a lot of bells and whistles, and we tried pretty much every one that we could. So these are screenshots of part of different modules. They're not all the same module. We had embedded video, we had images. This screen up in the upper right was a choose your own adventure module, which was great because our students are coming to this class at different levels. And for some of our students, this will be review, or for others, this might be the first time they're coming across this information. So it allowed students, for at least this portion, to work more at their own pace, so they wouldn't get bored or just start clicking absent-mindedly. They had a little control. We gave robust feedback based on what they would click based on the questions that we asked and the answers. If you look at the lower left, you can see an example of that feedback there based on what the student answered, whether it was correct, incorrect, and how much additional information we felt a student needed. There were word recognition modules or that we could actually have students type in a short answer, or we even had one lengthy paragraph and the system could recognize how many words and certain keywords to see if the student was on the right track with their answer. So we provided guidance and feedback at the point of need. It was a delivery system, but it also assessed their knowledge by asking these questions. And it was interactive and hands-on and not just passively sitting in front of the computer like a lot of online classes can do. So our sample population was a treatment group of 5 starts and a control group of 5 starts, and they alternated. So 10 starts total, about 1,500 students across 60 sections of 122 in each group. The control group kept the content quizzes that are currently built into the course. And then the pilot group was given the adaptive courseware, and it was on the same topics. We built out the modules based on what was in the quizzes already. Our in-house ed team helped us deploy it without interruption, which was awesome. Thank you guys. We did require some faculty training. And we held live sessions, which were recorded for faculty that couldn't attend the live session. We had non-integrated tech support because this was a system outside of Ashford and Ashford tech support. So Aimee and I ran it basically. And what we found is there were a couple errors. And what was really great about the Smart Sparrow system is that we were able to correct those errors immediately. Like as soon as we got the issue, we could pop into the back end of Smart Sparrow, correct the issue, and then it was immediately available to all students. A lot of the issues we found were actually user error because this was a system that forced students to go through the modules and answer the questions. They couldn't just click through and move on to the next screen and not worry about whether they got it right or wrong. You had to get the correct answer in order to move forward. You had to answer fully to move forward. So we would get a lot of issues saying the system is broken, it's not letting us go through, when in fact, because of the robust analytics Smart Sparrow can give us, we were able to see, no, they're stuck on this module and they've only tried it a couple times. And for some of these, we would not allow students to go through until they had answered correctly. So students were mostly getting frustrated and stopping, thinking there was a problem, versus working through to get to the right answer and then move on to the next part of the module. So these are basically what we included in the labs based on what we had in the quizzes and based on the research assignments. So they're scaffolded. They're aligned with the content in the current curriculum. The lab was open the whole week. We had a due date for the same day as the assignment, that the assignment was due, but it was open the whole week, so students could work on it whenever they needed to. So then when it came to looking at the data to see how it might impact student writing, we were looking at the rough draft and the final draft waypoint data. So the first two assignments would have minimal impact due to the minimal amount of lab time at that point. So the rough draft and the final draft were more comprehensive data points. And I'm going to let Aimee take you through those.
Thanks, Becky. Thank you. Yes, and anyone with interest on that sort of experience we had in terms of the deployment and the tech support thing, it was very eye-opening, and we'd love to chat about it offline with anyone who's interested. It was really valuable information. But as Becky mentioned, you know, these topics here in what we ended up calling a writing lab align with quizzes that the control group had, which is what had been used in the classroom. And it's a lot of information in 4 weeks, but that's, you know, the nature of our accelerated courses. So most students completed all 4 of these. We were really impressed with the way students did. And a lot of the students who did reach out tech support wise and saying it was broken, these were students who weren't even spending more than a minute trying. So we were reaching those students who weren't accustomed to striving. They weren't accustomed to trying. And we were able to work with them and give them something that not only taught them to strive, but also taught them that they can do something that's difficult. And that was, you know, in the back of our minds, that was a hope. And that was a dream that somehow technology could do that. Honestly, I felt like a technology can't do that because, you know, you need a person to do it. But we had some pleasant surprises on that front. And so I'll show you some of the data. As Becky mentioned, we really focused in on what was going on in the rough draft paper, which is this one due in week 3, because we know they would have completed at least half of the labs, lab 1 and lab 2 at that point, potentially lab 3. And then of course the final draft, because at that point they would have finished all 4. So what we discovered when we looked at the data with the rough draft paper was some interesting positive trends happening. So I don't know about you, but these graphs confuse me. So I'll just take a moment just in case and explain the dark blue bar means proficient and above. So that's an A or a B grade. And then the light blue bar is basic and below. So that's C, D, and failing. So what we found was that in some really important areas, we had a pretty big jump in the students who ended up getting an A or a B in a specific waypoint criterion. So these are the criterion on the rubric for waypoint on the rough draft assignment. And you'll see that overall development, so that's a big piece of writing, that had some really remarkable uptick, 4.3% increase in A's and B's in that particular area. Resource requirement, which is important, and it's something that I know all faculty are concerned about, is our students actually getting resources and then actually integrating them properly into their writing. I mean, that was a 3% uptick. And then structure, hallelujah, we were so pleased, up 4.5% on the rough draft. So they're actually learning to organize their work and developing some confidence. And when you have this kind of an increase on the rough draft assignment, now we're able to actually give meaningful feedback to a student that bumps them up and gives them the confidence and gives them the skills they need to complete a really effective, successful research paper. And once they have that under their belt, they're ready to rock and roll. Now, in terms of statistical significance, we're not comfortable with that calculation for this project because there are a number of variables that we could not control. So we're looking at this as trends and as things to investigate in the future if we're able to control more variables. So I just want to put that out there as well, that we're really excited about what we see here. The sample population was really good. It's a good sample. It's a good control group. But we're not quite as scientifically, well, anyway, I won't say any more about that. But I will say how excited we were when then we looked at the final draft paper, and now we see we've kind of gone beyond that 5% increase, which that magic 5% in research. We always want to find that 5% difference, and we got there. We can't believe it. So no change in APA, which was interesting. We thought for sure they'd do better on APA because that's sort of the easiest piece. But to our surprise, it was these bigger, more important issues of writing where we saw the biggest impact: structure, development, and again, that resource requirement went up again. So this was pretty remarkable. We expected the sort of easy black and white binary right and wrong APA would be, where we would see the increase, but we ended up seeing it in these bigger, more important areas. And that's something that we just were thrilled to see, especially with this big of an indication and this big of a jump. So again, this is on the final paper in Waypoint, and this is all students, pilot versus control. Very exciting. We did want to dig a little bit deeper and see, because as we were looking at analytics, in a first-year English composition course, there's always, and it's not an Ashford thing, it's not a online thing, it's a university college system-wide thing, that retention in first-year English composition courses is usually problematic. There's usually a larger number of students not participating, just checking out. So knowing that about this particular course subject area, we did a small sample, and I'm going to tell you it's a very small sample, so we can't get too excited about it, but it's, again, something that we want to research further. A very small sample where we took away the 0 grades, okay? So the 0 grades for non-submission, maybe like a third strike plagiarism, those issues. We want to take away students who got a 0 on it and see what happens. So again, very small sample, so I don't want to push this too far, but just when we saw that it is, the blue here is the pilot group, and the scores on the final research paper were so much higher in the pilot group when we took all the zeros out of the equation. So that's something we'd love to explore further, because that's really exciting as well. Again, for confidence. So we also took a look at the end of course survey. Now, we did not do any kind of writing lab specific targeted surveying of students. So we didn't add in a question about it. We just left the end of course survey alone to see what would happen. And only a handful of students said anything about it, which, you know, maybe that's good. It didn't seem like a weird foreign thing that didn't belong in class. Maybe it's bad because we didn't get a lot of data, but it was very interesting to sort of see the breakdown. And you'll see here we had a few more negative comments than positive. But I will say, in terms of the negative comments, I think it's important to sort of talk about that, because 5 of them are related to technical issues, which I think we only had one, Becky, that was an actual technical issue. The others were students who were giving up without trying. So there's that piece. But it is good to know that technical issues are something we always want to talk about when we're going to integrate new courseware. 3 students had negative remarks because they thought it was too hard or too much effort. My favorite comment was, this is too much work for an online class. I'm not going to take that as a negative. I'm going to take that as a good thing. Our courses are not just an online class. You know, the rigor is something that we want to provide to students, and it's going to help them succeed. So again, it's all these sort of things we have to think about. We had a couple of students who said the instructor was not helpful, or that there were no instructions for the writing lab. We added instructions all over the place in the course shell. Our instructors, you know, we did train and outreach. It's possible maybe they were not being helpful for one reason or another. So that's something for us to look into in the future. But really, and these were all, you know, controlled for beforehand. So we didn't feel really too upset about these negative comments on the EOCS. And in terms of the positive, I mean, it ran the gamut. This is just this is a little wordle on the comments that we got that were positive. I love the word confidence in there, better, enjoyed, you know, really good stuff. So another piece before we open it up to questions and comments, which I do want to leave time for that. There's just, I get excited and I talk too much, was that we had a big surprise when we reached out to the academic integrity team and said, hey, here's our control group and here's our pilot group. Can you let us know what happened in terms of incidents of academic dishonesty? You know, we have the incident report of academic dishonesty, which is the formal report that goes to their team and they investigate. And we said, how many reports did you get and how many of them were found to be valid? Hold on tight, guys. You're not going to believe it. We couldn't believe it. We fell out of our chairs. Can you believe this? Like, this is amazing. And this wasn't necessarily something we were targeting in the research. This was an exciting surprise. The control group, 29 incidents reported and found to be valid. Those are 29 students who got sanctions for an incident of academic dishonesty. In the pilot group, there were 6 reports. We investigated those 6 and found that 5 of them did not do any of the writing labs. So 5 of those 6 did not participate in the pilot program. 1. We had only 1 student in that pilot group who went through and did the writing labs and was cited for academic dishonesty. And there were about 1,500 in that group, and compared to the control of 29. So this warms my heart. I feel like we've done something beautiful and helpful for students. When we think about retention, I mean, when you get cited for academic dishonesty, there are all kinds of ways in which that can either make a student lose motivation. Of course, when it triggers sanctions, you know, kind of like 3 strikes and you're out point. Very exciting. So in terms of the summary, I'm just going to rock and roll so we can get through to the Q&A because that's more important. We only have 5 minutes. So while we found that there were not an impact where we thought maybe there would be, including this course is engaging, that EOCS item, we thought for sure it'd be more engaging. We found no change there. But we do want to see what happens over time. We want to now look at these students, the 1,500 or so in the pilot group and the 1,500 or so in the control group. And we want to see now, we're coming up on a year later, how many of them are still with us, how many of them are doing well. So basically, we know it works well in STEM fields. Now we know it does add that nice development. What we used to call remediation is working well. It's giving point of need practice and feedback where students need it, especially the students who are self-helpers, the students who are not going to proactively reach out to the librarian or the live tutor, the student who wants to do it themselves, darn it. We're going to be reaching those students. Something that we would love to explore for writing across the curriculum, that we could have these little writing labs sprinkled throughout a program so that students don't just forget everything they learned in first year comp. Of course, graduate programs. And then they could be tailored to what the writing needs to be in that field, and that these create all this repetition, practice, and forced completion. So we are now at our Q&A. We only have about 3 minutes. And I'm sorry I get so excited I talk so much, but we can open the chat, and we are here. And of course, here's our contact info on for if you want to reach out offline.
Aimee, there is a question, but it was just private to me. Can you talk more about the Smart Sparrow platform?
Yes. So the Smart Sparrow platform is an open platform, and it's cloud-based. So what that means is that they give you all the tools, and they give you the analytics, and you develop the content. So they do contract out to content experts if you want, but in our case, we really are the content experts, not only in the subject matter, but in our student populations. So we developed it, and Becky and I, of course, drew from what was in the quizzes already, and then we developed more. So you can use content that you already have and just build it out, or you can start from scratch. And it's in a cloud environment, which means we don't have to push it out to the master to update it or change it. We don't have to, get into the revision cycle to go through curriculum and get pushed out to a master on a certain start date. You just go into the cloud environment, you fix it, you update it, you add something fresh and new, hit the button, and it's deployed out live instantly. So that's the platform, and it's used everywhere. I mean, there are a lot of on-ground universities and everyone else using it. Next steps. Okay, Mindy, so next steps, we're telling everyone about it. We're asking to have it. So that's next steps. So, we've shared this information with Andy Sheen, Mike Kalaji, of course, our dean, Dr. Harrison, and we have asked for it. And, we can definitely continue to share it so that other people know it exists. Becky and I plan to write a piece and get it out published somewhere in 2018, because it's not just about us. This is something for students everywhere. And I guess that's it. I got to stop now. I really appreciate it. Again, please do reach out to us offline if you have greater interest. Thank you so much.